This is Jackie, host of the Natural Healing Reel. Today, my guest is Brenda Carey, and she is an energy healer, passionate about guiding people to find their vibrant health for themselves as she found hers through the body, mind, and spirit. She has an incredible purpose as she went through a tough time and came to an incredible awakening that she's going to share with us. So, how are you today, Brenda?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me, Jackie.
Thank you for coming. And I'm a little punchy today, we were saying, so we're going to just let Brenda do some of the chatting here instead of me this morning. Tell us about how this all became for you. When did you get on this path of, tell us, you're a teacher, a meditation teacher, a Reiki master, you're teaching, you've got retreats, like share kind of the scope, and then tell us how this all started for you.
Yeah, I would love to tell my story and also relate it to your listeners as well, because I feel like even though some of the details might be different for each one of them, I feel like the themes are very similar. And my story is definitely a pain to purpose story. It actually started when I was a teenager and I was diagnosed with scoliosis, which is simply a spinal deformity where there's a C or an S curve in the spine. And so that led to me being in a plastic brace, which I lovingly at the time called my plastic corset. So if you can think of like being in like this very encaged, tight fitting brace during adolescent years. I mean, we're all self-conscious in those
Lord, I
formative
can't even
years,
imagine. With two teenage daughters right now.
right? Yeah. And so I was going to many doctors, orthopedic surgeons, and even though the brace kind of slowed down the inevitable, eventually I did need to have spinal fusion surgery. And so at 19, I had two metal rods placed along my spine, which they still are there today. Many decades later. And
Wow.
oddly enough, I didn't really have pain before the surgery. It wasn't until during the surgery and then after. And so that was a new realization I was in my, early 20s at the time, but felt like I had a body of like an 80-year-old. I was on consistent prescription medication for the pain because it was just so intense. And all the doctors could really offer me, and by no means am I blaming Western medicine. They did what they were, trained
I
to
know.
do. And I'm grateful for that. But they didn't really have any other solutions for me. They just kind of said, well, hopefully eventually it'll just go away. And I came in time after time complaining again about the pain and just also emotionally, the side effects of some of the pain medication made my emotions like a roller coaster.
Well, and that's a massive surgery too, right? So
Yes.
my daughter, my eldest daughter, she has passed away, unfortunately, but this was one of the beginning things. So exactly what you're saying, right? The pain, right? And anyway, so carry on with your story, but I do also have a girlfriend who, like yourself, her and her sister have had that surgery. So their back doesn't bend; it goes.
Nope.
And I mean, thank God she's flexible because it's just the torso. It's like the Barbie doll,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I have no like spinal flexion, so I can't curve or round. And so when we think about like how that affects our whole being, like I was thinking very rigidly because I embodied rigidness.
Oh my goodness, I love that, right? Because you weren't flexible.
Yep. And so I don't think that was really brought up to me as, because I have literally metal rods and there's rigidity along my spine. Our spine is our energetic connection to how supported we feel, how safe we feel in this world. And so my emotions were just,
All the nerves are they okay? So I also have another daughter who had a spinal surgery as well. She had cerebral palsy, and we had but are not all of the nerves and
yep.
all the pathways are coming out of there, right?
Yep. And they're connected to so many internal organs. They're connected to systems like nervous system, immune systems of the body. And that is sort of the more holistic looking at a person as a whole human, as opposed to just, addressing one particular issue, which for me, of
Oh.
course, is the curved spine.
Okay, so let's just recap on this. Here you are,
Yep.
a teenager getting this surgery without any understanding of how it's going to affect you, your whole well-being, your whole life, but your well-being, like your, they don't talk to you about that. Like you're not prepared for that.
No, there's no intro to like the trauma of surgery. And I do think that there is deeper levels of trauma, even for minor surgeries. It's asking the body a lot
I do.
to go through that, and the anesthesia and all the complexities of it. So as an adolescent, all I knew was that my back hurt. Doctors weren't able to give me anything that would last sustainably. And I would kind of fall into these times of depression. Like, why? Like, what kind of the why me? Like, why does my body have to feel this terrible? And I'm quite young at the time. And so thankfully, my mom was in the picture, and she's quite a healthy person. And just kind of as a whim, she's like, why don't you come to yoga class with me? And I was like, yoga class? I'm like, okay. At that point, I kind of had nothing to lose. And so I went to her to this yoga class. And I lovingly tell my yoga students, because I am now a yoga teacher, although I would have never have thought of that at the time. I did not enjoy my first few classes. So I'm just saying to anyone out there, go to yoga and you're like, this is awful. Like,
I was doing Pilates. I was trying to tell my girlfriends, let's do Pilates. And my other girlfriends pulling me to yoga. And even though I was flexible and dancing and all that, it's hard.
it's hard.
And you got to go within and balance. And there's a lot going on in there.
There is a lot. And there's two parts to this. First of all, I had to relearn a whole new body. I mean, I didn't have any of the at least the spinal flexibility that I had before. And what was the most difficult part of being on my mat was the judgments that came up when I couldn't do something. And that's what made it hard.
From yourself, your
Yeah.
mind judging
It was
you.
this negative self-talk of like, oh, you can't do that posture like your neighbor over there, and she's older than you. Or, well, you used to be able to do this. You used to be able to touch your toes. Why can't you do that anymore?
Oh, wow.
So it's that mental loop that I was stuck in. And I was probably stuck in it for so many years. But it was the yoga practice that almost kind of forced me to be still, to create space in my body with stretching and lengthening the tight muscles that I had. And when we open the body and lengthen the body, we're also opening the mind. And sometimes those awarenesses can really flood in, and we really start hearing what we tell ourselves. And for me, it was not kind.
I have just been going through this little journey really intensely again. I've been through it a few different times over my lifetime, but I've been going through let's just talk the ghetto part of it. And you're right. It's like, it's that listen, and then listening to it, and then sometimes there's two people talking, like you got this
Yep.
and then you're actually answering, and you're listening to it all, which is a great way to explain that we're not our body or our mind.
Yes.
Like, that is because otherwise you think you're crazy, I'm sure.
Exactly. And there was probably a point when I did think that I was crazy, but I was grateful to the yoga teacher who said, you are not your thoughts. Like, she would say that so many times during our class. And eventually, with some practice, I'm not saying this was overnight, I started to believe that. And I started to question my thoughts. And I started to question those negative self comments and be like,
This is the work. This is the work. This is the
yeah.
magic right here, what you're talking about. And how old were you when you got to start doing this?
I was like mid-20s at this point.
Nice.
I felt much older, but
Nope.
but
And
I was
because of a
20.
thought, right?
Yes.
Because we have a thought that I have to interrupt because I'm just a little punchy this morning, but a friend I've seen for 40 years, he was not, because he had a story in his head that he's a golfer and he couldn't shoot as far anymore because he's almost 60 now. And I'm like, okay, pardon me, right? Like, and the thought was aging him. And when I explained it to him, I think he lost 15 years.
Yeah.
Like that, just seeing and understanding exactly what you're saying. This is so everything. This is everything what you're
So
sharing.
I would encourage people, even if initially they don't like yoga or they don't like sitting still or whatever the excuse is, because I'm just going to call them out and say it's an excuse. It needs to be there because we need to have an awareness of how we're thinking from our subconscious mind. Because I don't think anybody thinks, oh, I'm going to self-sabotage myself every chance I get. Like, I don't think we consciously think that way. But, in the back of my mind, my subconscious beliefs, and it took me some time to sit with these and to really ask that, is this true? I had these subconscious beliefs that I operated from, and that was there's something wrong with me, because that came from the tapes I've heard from well-meaning doctors from my adolescence. They were actually saying there's something wrong with your back. But what I heard was that there is something wrong with me. So I was basically living out this story of that there's something wrong with me and I'm not enough. And
Well,
so those
and here's
tapes,
the thing, we're all living that story, no matter, like you said in the very beginning, this is the underlying of all of us. Don't you believe that unworthy, I'm not enough?
yeah. And
Somehow
I
we
think,
perceived it.
I think it comes out in different, like our experiences are different for us
Yeah.
to be aware of that. But it takes courage. I admit it takes courage to really kind of face those subconscious beliefs and ask, is that true? And is that from the mind place where I really want to live and grow and, and be my life? And so for many people, they stay stuck in that pattern of, well, this is just the way it is. This is
This,
how it's always going to
no,
be.
okay, so this because I'm going through this and trying to catch it and go, oh, that's not even true. That just is like that's just not even a thing. But okay, so and so the unconsciousness, the ego,
Yep.
I can't stand it. It's just ridiculous because you think you're living on purpose, and all of a sudden you get a little trigger going with somebody, and then I walk away thinking, okay, what part of that is a perception I had of my childhood or my upbringing?
Yeah.
And every single time, it's us. I mean, they're doing their thing or whatever as well and interacting with you, but this has really been blowing me away. What you're talking about today is how tell me, how did you learn to do this? Like what were you, did you create a formula with this? How did this all come up for you? How did you learn this?
I would love to say I had an organized formula, but it came in teachers that came to me at the right time. So I think when we create the openness in our body, and for me, that was having a consistent yoga practice and walking in nature, that was really helpful for me. And then came this idea of, oh, I have these awarenesses and these belief systems that I don't think are really true. And then I was like, well, what do I do with that? And so then I had a meditation teacher come in and she taught me about witnessing the mind and deeper breathing. And I think breathing is actually a very overlooked healing practice that most people do not give attention to. So when I said create space, that goes for breathing as well.
Isn't it the breath that that gives you the space? Like when you're breathing, like so I've been doing that heart brain coherence,
Yes.
Greg
Awesome.
Braden and Joe, I love all that. And so as of late, the latest Greg Braden is saying into the heart to shift your when you're getting triggered and all of that, which I am still going through a whole pile of stuff because I haven't gotten myself up out of my story long enough to to release it yet. But that breath into the heart with 5 and then out for 8.
Yes.
When I'm breathing and thinking in for 5, the heart, I feel my whole heart and body expand and create space. And
Yes.
that's what you're talking about, right?
So again, it's similar to when we stretch our muscles and move our body because we're designed to move. We are not designed to be stagnant and sedentary. So when we enter into the space of breathing deeper, creating space, the yogis call this our prana or our life force energy. And so when this opens up, the mind then opens up and it's open to new possibilities, to new stories. And this is a great time to bring in either affirmations or to begin to really notice the thoughts that are really taking over most of our thinking during the day.
Our
And then we get,
lives.
yeah, and then we
Our
get to
lives.
And
Yeah.
I tell the people that I coach all the time, I said, we forget how powerful of creators we are. We are a piece of the bigger creator, source, God, universe, whatever you want to call it. We are an expression of that. And so just as the universe creates all the beauty we see in this world, we too create our own beauty. And
And
so
it's
often people
also
forget.
hard to grasp for people who are just coming to this, right? Like when I'm
Oh,
sharing this with my girlfriends, and I know I've known that for years, it's just so hard for us with this 3D world to see that we're kind of all a part of this because we've not been taught it at all, right? How
yeah.
that we're all energetic beings and we're in a universe that is that we're like you're saying, right? I always like to think of it as like the sparkler, that we're all an extension of, and I just like to see that we're all little sparks or something, right? Because just for me to get a visual of how that we all are one, right? Because
Yeah.
we're all separate. We're looking at each other going, okay, yeah, whatever. It's hard to understand or to, but yeah, sorry, I keep interrupting because this is very,
No, it's good.
it's very profound work, what you're talking about. It's very simple, but it's very
Yes. It is
complex.
very,
It's
it,
so incredible. Sorry, you talk. It's
no, it's okay.
so when you started with your yoga and through the breath, you started to notice that your body after the surgery started to get out of pain and started to feel
It did.
different.
Because I
Yeah.
was I was moving more, I was breathing deeper. I wasn't breathing deeply enough. Most people only breathe from like up by their collarbones, like super shallow, hunched forward. And we're meant to breathe from, diaphragmatic breathing. We're meant to breathe from our lower belly all the way up. And for many of us, whether we're sitting in front of a screen or driving our car, we're kind of collapsing all of that heart energy, like Heart Math Institute. I've studied that as well, that we're meant to expand and breathe from such a bigger place. And that calms the nervous system down. It allows us to feel expansive and to be open to a different story and different belief system. And so this is where I started introducing affirmations. And affirmations are tricky because a lot of people think, oh, it's positive thinking. And I was like, not exactly. Because from where I was, so my subconscious belief system of there's something wrong with me, I was working with that. I could not automatically jump to, I am great, I am filled with joy, this is the best ever. Like that was just too big of a jump for me. So for me, it was just very small, like one step up. So I went from, I'm going to question whether there is anything wrong with me. I'm going to be open to a different story. And so it wasn't like taking this big, like some people, I get it, jumping into positivity right away can be a little like you feel like you're faking it, which sometimes you might have to, but just take it one little piece up, like, and then just maybe mention something instead of, well, I'm going to consider that there's a different story for me. What would that story be? What would I like to align to? And like, I would like to feel good until lunchtime. And so it can just build on itself piece by piece without having it to be this kind of like overwhelming, too Pollyanna kind of positivity. But it starts retraining those neural pathways, because the older we get, and I say this in love, as we grace agefully, those neural pathways get like deeper and deeper rutted in till it's so automatic we don't even realize that we've chosen something based on an old outdated belief system.
And a perception of something that they say that like the Bruce Lipton stuff, right? And I've met this other lady, Sandy Levy Lundin. She's an amazing pioneer in this work, and I'm not anyway. I just feel blessed to meet all of you because this 0 to 5 and obviously past generational stuff as well in ourselves is a perception of our little girl or our little boy that we don't even know. I didn't, that's where I've been, as I've been doing it. I believe they call it the shadow work.
Yeah. Shadow work is a term used for sure.
Well, who remembers when you're 0 to 5? I have a couple of flash things, and then, but that's when those perceptions come in that we're not enough.
Yeah.
We're just little kids perceiving something that wasn't even the truth, and then we apparently continue to keep layering and building that as a truth
Mhm.
based on that we're in that energy as a little child. And it's just bizarre. It's wild because for myself, it shows up in all these different stories that look totally different. You
Mhm.
think you've cleaned it all up, and now you got something totally different. And and then the underlying thing is again, right? It's that this we're not enough, and
Yeah.
here we are. We're a part of. We're a part of like like yeah. We're just it's the education, I believe, right? That
Yes.
we don't have.
And then I think the final piece is because there are other, I don't know, call them naysayers. I love people who question and doubt. I guess I say I'm one of those because I like to know why. Um, because people say, oh, well, it's just mind over matter. And I'm like, well, not really. Because to me,
Placebo effect.
yeah. I'm like, there's a difference between a mindset and then what I call a heart set. So when we can transfer what we know, because a lot of people know that they want to live a more joyful, pain-free life, like they know that. And many people even know what they need to do, whether it's eat healthier, whether it's exercise more. But still, there's this disconnect between what we know and what we really do from a place of self-love and compassion. And I think for me, that connection happened in, I will say, the next healing round for me. So round one was spinal fusion surgery. And then the next round, like you mentioned, it comes in layers.
Okay, I love you for just saying that right there.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
I was back in my little head beating myself up. I thought I got this all fixed up already, right?
No, it's part of the healing journey. Like it's
Usually have
part,
my little head beating myself up,
yeah,
and I don't even, not even aware that that's going on, right? Those
yeah, it's
puppy
part of
love
the
things.
healing journey. So fast forward many years, this is oh gosh, I'm in my late 30s, early 40s. So I had after I had my second daughter, so this is just shy of turning 40, my digestion just would not function properly.
Ah,
Despite following, again, Western medicine protocols, I did what I was told. It was supposed to work with the antibiotics and all the things, and it didn't. And so it ended up being not diagnosed as a digestive autoimmune condition. And I know. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have this yoga practice and a meditation practice. I don't eat terribly by any means. So I was like, this is really
you look
interesting.
pretty wholesome, Missy. You look like you're pretty wholesome.
So, but it was like such a curiosity. So again, going into this self-awareness, I would say a deeper layer of it. And again, what came up for me and was learning of how empathic I am. And for many people, we take
Empathic.
on empathic.
Me too.
For many women, we can take on other people's emotions. And it's so interesting how I was digesting other people's emotions that were not my own. And
Wow. That's
so
huge.
there,
What does Oprah say? One of those aha moments? That's pretty big, hey?
and I didn't come to that right away. It did take some time after I realized, okay, Western medicine just isn't going to be the route for me. I tried it, it didn't work. Let's start digging a little bit deeper and see where, again, subconscious beliefs are coming up and why I'm not able to digest food properly. And it was interesting to me. The key was, that's weird. I noticed I'm like, sometimes I can digest food really well, and some days I can't. It was just, again, kind of this roller coaster where my emotions came into play.
Yeah,
And so I noticed on the days when I was taking on other people's emotions were days that I did not digest as well. And
sure.
then other days when I felt a little more aligned, that was days that I felt better. So I feel like there are layers to our belief systems that come when we are ready, not when we are ready to really dig in deep and, like you mentioned, do some of this, whether you call it shadow work or the deeper dive work.
Yeah, I don't know what to call it. I just ended up calling it that because I heard, all these years of, and then it was like, how is it that I can't remember what the shadow is? This must be it. The one that you think is very scary, like down, right? And it's nothing.
Yeah.
It's nothing,
So
isn't it?
this was part of my journey that showed me how to go from a mindset to a heart set. And
Love that.
and developing better boundaries for myself, emotional boundaries. One of my mantras that I tell my other empathic friends is, I'll say to myself, what's mine is mine, what's theirs is theirs, and I don't have to take it on. And I literally like will use my hand on my heart, like what's mine is mine, what's theirs is theirs, and I
Love
don't
that.
take it on. And it gives us freedom that we can choose not to take it all on. Because it stems from that mindset of, oh, I need to be fixed because there's something wrong with me. So they must need to be fixed because there's something wrong with them. We project our own beliefs on other people. So once we start settling in the heart with compassion and love, not a mentality of fix it, that's not coming from love, but that, I can choose for myself with love what is best for me, then we can authentically extend that out to other people. Layers, it all comes in layers as we are ready.
I think so a couple of things that we've talked about already are really they're the key to everything is well, energy, like if we're not moving, our energy is just stuck inside of us, right?
Yeah.
Like this COVID, everybody at home. I learned how to shake and I learned how and dance and sing just to
Dance.
get because we have to, otherwise we're just blocked and heavy and we need to help. It helps to get it out, but breath does everything. First of all, like you do those deep breathing, like you're talking about, it's ridiculous what happens in less than a minute in your whole body, isn't it?
Mhm.
Like you can alkaline your whole system apparently by with breath.
Yes. Yep. Breath work is so key to just an overall healthy state. And most of us don't breathe nearly as deeply as we need to.
I
And
was
then,
holding my breath. I was
oh,
I when I started to look at this, I was like, wow, I'm holding my breath all the time, and it's
yeah, I would say most people, when they are in like even a low grade state of
fight or flight.
anxiety or stress, yeah, fight or flight, we are breathing so shallowly, like the brain doesn't get enough oxygen to function properly. And so think of how that affects how we think. We're just not
Well,
getting enough oxygen.
right? And we, so here's the biggest thing that all of this has come back to me because, and it's great that we're talking about this because this is what I'm working on. And it is just, we all have to do this. Nobody gets a free pass on this. And I see that as like, it's getting more intense as we get older, or it's just more intense because the energies are more intense right now, or, and some people are checking out, right? Like there's lots of suicides. That stuff's not even being talked about because people don't have any tool. They don't. Mainstream's not saying you just need to do this, and this. We've not been taught these things unless we're going to yoga or we're. Do you know what I mean? Unless you're in. But
In a
I'll tell you what. There's a
community.
lot of people that aren't in with this knowledge.
And that's what I really advocate. And that's what I do in my holistic lifestyle coaching group is we specifically do groups because energetically we are designed to be in community. We are not meant to do everything by ourselves. As we know, that creates a lot of mental health issues, isolation, all the things. Like we are designed to be in a community. I mean, we can just see that and feel that within ourselves. And but and I well, I should say, and it is more helpful to be in a community that is going in a direction that you want to go. So for me, although I had some very dear friends that from years and years ago, but they remembered me as, Brenda, the one who has always had back pain and, and so that was their memory of me and they held on to that. And some of them were willing to release that label of me, and some of them were not. So I also had to shift my relationships to
Yeah.
be with people that were interested in growing and learning and evolving, and doing health habits that would support me feeling better in my digestion, because that was key. And just my overall health and well-being, like people that did want to move, that did want to eat healthy, that did breath practices. And so for some of us, we might have the most loving family and friends, but they may not be seeing us as the healed person that we're meant to be. Like we deserve to be healthy and vibrant and well. And so we do need to surround ourselves with people that can support us and encourage us when we do have downfalls. Like that's just a part of life. I say when, not if. We
Yeah.
all have situations in life where we're feeling great and that's awesome, but then situations beyond our control can bring us down. And that's when the community says, oh, but wait, we're going to support you through this,
Yeah.
even though it's really tough. And to be held in that way, I think, is a part of healing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, 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 and yes. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And so, and then I know for myself, just going through really a bunch of pile up of trauma, and you start to isolate because you're trying to figure out, like you were saying, anybody that goes through trauma or brain trauma or loss of life and all of this is like, we have to process that, and we have to like, who am I now? Like, where do I fit in this, like in my life? And I found the same thing. I was not able to find I wasn't able to have a conversation where anybody was really able to have a conversation back with what I was sharing, I guess. Like I talk, energetically, this kind of, so I think just naturally what happens is they start to fall away, just because I think that, spirit, source, God has a bigger plan for us, because I think for myself that's what happened. And the next thing you know, it was like, okay. And then just kind of getting messages that they're not gone, you just need space to be able to go and find like-minded people, right? So that you can lift and support. And
Because there is this energetic law as we raise our vibration, whether that's through, that can even be through our health practices that we're doing, the shifting of mindset to something more positive, we can start to attract that same level of relationships and opportunities. And so know that it's all working for us. We may not see it at the time. Believe me, when I was having daily back pain and the digestive issues, I wasn't thinking, oh, this is for me. When I finally stepped back and I had people to help me through it, then I was like, okay, maybe this is a part of a bigger plan than even I can see today. And so that's how we move, our pain through purpose. Like we're meant to evolve. We're not meant to stagnate. And so these practices of, like you mentioned, movement and breath work and meditation, and even the food that we eat, like food is also medicine. It can align us to a higher vibration. So I'm always very mindful of, number one, how I'm eating.
yeah,
I would actually say how someone is eating is actually more important than what. I'm not saying that what isn't important at all, but if we're just wolfing down food
yeah.
or not chewing or not
And having negative thoughts about, I shouldn't be
right,
eating this. This is bad for me,
right,
as you're guilty, and you're cramming it in your mouth, but you're telling your mind that I shouldn't be having that. Like this guilt and this beating up and shaming, or whatever goes on. It's a society.
yeah. Or
And
distraction, like people who eat and they're watching something on their phone or whatever. Like I'm like,
every
okay,
child.
I don't think people realize, okay, you're now ingesting whatever you're viewing on the screen is along with the food or drink or whatever is going on. And that is attributing to the vibration that you carry in our body, because we're energy. we're energy expressing itself.
Okay,
So
so this is the whole thing. Is this just not amazing? Do you just not like that? It's everybody needs to understand this, and how how you can how yeah how do you connect? How do we work in this? Like we're not just here in the middle of some freaking universe, just standing here to like you know make more money in our job. Like right we're in this vast universe and we think we're the only ones out there, and I don't know, it's so funny what we've bought into, and then the whole victimhood. And I have to work very very hard at that because I feel totally freaking victimized, right? Like it's like, and then this and this and this, and we live in a society of it. And then as soon as you don't see ourselves doing it, you can see if somebody else is doing victim, but you do victim, then you get more victim. You get it just keeps coming, right? Because we don't understand that we've got to. When people say don't look at it, it's like, hey, well, I didn't understand that really, right? But you've got to get yourself up out of that. You can't look at that. You got to look at something different so you don't
right.
get more of that,
Yeah.
right? But
Well,
this needs to be taught, Brenda. Like this is like it needs to be in the school system, don't you think? Like our children should be taught what you're sharing here today as a
I definitely do. I mean, I have two daughters and they listen to me talk about like attracts like and opposites create balance, and they watch me. And so I would encourage, parents out there, like kids are watching, whether they're your actual, biological kids or whatever.
in your
You're,
face. You better
yeah,
not say that. You're gonna get what? I love it.
yeah, they're watching. And so
Yeah.
to me, that's motivation for me to be a role model to my daughters,
Yeah.
because I want them to be vibrant and healthy and be change makers in this world. Like
Yeah.
well, I can't imagine what parent wouldn't want, the absolute best for their children. And that means we have to gift ourselves with that because
First, we
yes,
have to do the work and understand it and learn it, and then so that we can clear ourselves to help. I see a shift already in my girls, from me just moving through, the stories and stories that I think I'm clearing generations. I'm telling you that.
oh yeah. Um,
Generations of the man, the daddy issues, not enough, no love, all of that, right?
and that's another part. I mean, generational healing is another part of energetic healing. Like I look at, the lineage of women that I come from, and there was a lot of unworthiness. There was a lot of abuse. And although not my personal story, we still take that on a very cellular level. And so for many people, empathic people especially, I would say there is some clearing that needs to be done around what we've been taught through the generations, and questioning, like, is that something that I want to carry on further? Do I want that to be a part of my legacy, that I bring forward into, this next generation or not? And that's a really key issue for many people. Like, what do we take on from generations past
Yeah.
that may not have even been verbally instructed, but just are it's
Energetically, how you feel, right? So that feeling then creates, right? The thought then creates the feeling, like, right? Like when you're watching something, all of a sudden have a thought, and then all of a sudden you get scared, right? It's that, right? And then
and it's in our tissues, like it's literally in our cellular structure.
yeah, yeah. So I'm doing this clearing process. I've had I was very sick for like 4 days actually after this first clearing session that I did, because I I feel like I've been doing this work for a lifetime, but I'm still, and apparently we're always continually going to be clear and shedding the onion, I guess. I don't know.
Yep.
But I'm just hoping one day I pop out of it and don't go unconscious and down the rabbit holes. Like, and I have, like, there's lots, like I can see things right away instead of, whereas before I'd get triggered and I could go down for months down the spiral of the, on a rabbit hole of this and that, and not really realize that they hooked me. They hook, line, and sinker. And I was on the campfire being cooked. It it's just, but until we have that, just that peak of awareness, it's like, oh, I did that again, right? And it's how did you, how are you teaching? You're doing your groups. You're doing, share how you're teaching and supporting it, and because this is a process, right? And it's not one we know.
It is a process. Yeah, the way that I like to gift what I've learned is through the Inspired Living Holistic Lifestyle Program. And it's groups of women and private women coaching sessions on some of the different principles that I've learned through yoga, and Ayurveda, which is Ayurveda is a whole body healing system that uses the elements of nature to help us find balance. Meditation, energy healing work like Reiki. I blend all of these things in to help guide people to making their own decisions on creating their own healing path. Because so
Love
often
that.
we get very distracted externally, and it's easy to do
Yeah.
about what is this expert going to tell me that's best for me, or what is this doctor, or what is this? And so our focus is constantly outward. And so my focus is checking in inward and really tuning in. And for many people, they haven't really learned how to follow that inner voice. And so a lot of what I do is giving women empowering tools to check inward and be like, okay, is this breathing technique the one that's best for me, or meditation? And so they get to decide like which path is contributing to their healing, as opposed to grasping from the outside,
Yeah.
and trying to figure out, oh, should I do what this person says, or eat the way this person says, or do this, protocol like this person? Because we'll just stress ourselves out trying to figure out what other people are doing that
That's
we.
what we're doing. That's society. That's what we're doing. That's what we're taught. So we're all, and then we're trying to do it like so and so, and then we're going to do it better than so and so. And then did you right? And then this, did you see what she was doing? And like, and it's just the whole. That's just the whole rabbit hole that happens, right? It's all over the place that this happens.
Yes. So it's trusting that inner voice. And then the second part is, I call it the no big deal principle. And so oftentimes when we try to make change, depending how long we've been doing a certain thing, like for example, I had a woman, she knew she had to give up caffeine because she was super anxious all the time. She could tell when she drank coffee in the morning, she was just sky high. And then she had the slump in the afternoon. And she's like, I do know I need to stop drinking so much coffee. And so she tried to do like the cold turkey thing, and that just self-sabotaged her. And then she tried to do other options, and I said, let's try the no big deal principle. And for me, the no big deal is like almost like sneaking in the back door of the brain, because we have developed really intense habits, especially when they're around, I would say, addictive substances like caffeine or sugar. For me, it was sugar,
Yeah,
or
sugar,
it can be many,
sugar, sugar,
many
sugar.
things.
It's ridiculous. It's
So
deadly, that stuff.
it is. So
Apparently.
when we've decided, okay, this is something that I need to eventually not be taking anymore, it needs to be done almost like secretly, like knocking on the back door of your brain, where it's not going to create too much of a disruption. So for this woman who was drinking a lot of coffee during the day, I said, so just for 3 days, I'm just going to ask you, instead of I think she was doing like 3 cups of coffee in the morning, let's just do 2.5 for 3 days, just 2.5. And I'm like, and I asked her, would that be a no big deal to you? And she's like, oh yeah, that's not a big deal. I could totally do that. And that's how it starts. So it was 2.5 cups of coffee. And then she's like, you know what? 2 cups. I could totally 2 cups, no big deal. And that's how it started. And for many people, whatever it is that you want to shift in your life and create a new habit for, it's got to be no big deal to your brain. Because if it's too much, your brain's going to be like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. This is too much. And we have so many other things going on in life
But we
that
have such deep stories about addiction and sugar addiction.
I,
And so, because of these stories that we think are true, we then, and then, I'm an addict for life, like I'm an alcohol, like, no, you know what, you're not. You were making some, your brain was telling, these are thoughts. It's like a computer chip, apparently, does these thoughts. It's not even real, right? It's
Yeah. And
so,
our words, as you know, our words are so powerful. One of the things for me that I had to shift are pronouns. And this is huge for people. So if you find yourself saying my back pain or my anxiety or my whatever, know that the word my creates ownership.
oh my goodness, I heard my sister doing this when she had Addison's. Right, and it's their, like, it's their possession now or something.
Yeah.
It was, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So I would caution anyone who says my before something that they don't want to own. Now,
Ah,
if it is something you do want to own, then by all means, like my gratitude, great, do it, But if it's something that you're trying to create a little distance from, try the or this. So the back pain, the anxiety, and it creates this separation between you and whatever condition you might be referring to. Because ultimately, we know we are not our symptoms. We are infinitely more.
well, some of us know that.
Some of us. But I say it just again, and words are powerful energy. So if we start
Do you
disassociating,
not find that you're saying something and all of a sudden it's like unfolding in front of you right now? It's pretty incredible. So while you're saying that, I'm thinking I just said sugar's deadly. I'm like, okay, pod pock that, like, energetically clear that. Because well, they say that it's not healthy for us to it's very bad. So we'll just clear that because I'm lessening mine as well. I'm
well,
doing the no big deal thing.
yeah. Well, if it would be one thing if you said my sugar addiction, like if you kept saying, oh, my sugar addiction is so bad, and you fed the story and you're using my, which
Yeah.
is ownership of something, then I would say, how about just the sugar addiction that pops up when I'm stressed out? It just gives it a little more disassociation from who we really are.
Which is consciousness, which
Yeah,
is the watcher of and the listener of all of the that's going on, right?
exactly. Yep. So true.
Right. And that's that with what you're talking about with the yoga and then the breath. And then if you start to watch, like you were saying, happen to yourself, and then, well, and for myself too, listening to some of the thoughts that I was having, I was like, wow, I had no idea that I was just beating myself up like I failed. This is another marriage. I didn't, well, no, I came to a completion on something and I knew that at that time and I'd done everything and it was, um, that was part of my journey. And I knew that, but here I was not knowing that my little head was chatting away, telling me that I, had a flashing L on my forehead. Everybody know, oh yeah, and then I'd get, what's your last name now, right? And it'd just be like, right, like just embarrassed, and I failed, and like it's incredible what I found was going on up there.
Yeah. Yep.
Had
And then
no idea.
giving ourselves the compassion and grace to know that, this is, and hopefully we have learned something about ourselves and other people.
Yeah,
And we can, carry that with us.
yeah.
And to,
Yeah,
to
well, that's the whole thing, right? Like that's, I think, always my question is, what do you want me to see here? What is it that I need to know about this? I had 3 concussions during this past 4 year stint of it. It's like, okay, what? I know I'm not getting it.
uh,
Or I'm not listening. I get it, but I wasn't listening, right? I was not trusting or following my natural knowing, my intuition. So that's another big thing
yes.
because society doesn't really hold a lot of weight on that either, right? I mean, we do, people who understand it and know it, but other people think you're talking crazy talk. Well, she's talking that crazy talk again.
Right. Trusting our intuition, it definitely not something that I learned as a little girl, but
No.
something I definitely have relied on for my healing journey.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get it. Some of us are just wired where we want to know the hard facts and the science behind things. Um, and there's a beauty in that as well.
Yeah.
But I also think there's balance in it too. I do think
Oh, I
that
think you're
balance both.
totally right. I know for myself, I get into things and I get like I just dive into the pool of it all, right? And then it's like, oh, and then I see something else that's great, and I like to dive into that pool too. Right? And so it's yeah, but there's yeah, keeping balance is a very big topic, isn't it?
Yes.
Hence the yoga.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. There's definitely yoga for that. And yeah, balance. I mean, balance looks different for every person.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so there's never like one path for balance because we're all energetically wired up so differently.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is. And then when people are trying to tell us, they want us to do something their way, and you're never going to be able to fit what it is that they want you to do.
Right.
They're not going to be happy with you because you're not going to do it that way,
Right.
right?
And that's what I try to humbly teach is that ultimately I tell people, you know, the answers.
Yeah.
Now they might be buried under some layers of subconscious thinking or, roles that you may identify with that are no longer true for you. But the answers are there. And when it comes from a place of love and compassion,
Yeah.
then that's your intuition speaking to you. And it may not make rational sense to other people. It may not be supported by science, but if it truly feels like you are, you get to live this life and you get to be inspired and help yourself and help others, then that's the path that you get to choose for yourself.
Yeah. And so let's just recap on this. So the yoga, when you're trying to hold a pose or you're just beginning or you're stretching, you have to go within. And then you have to breathe because you're trying to do, and so it's a kind of a gift and a way to get within without really knowing that that's what's going to happen, right? Was what I found, which I loved.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yoga, I mean, and I get it. Some people have, issues with yoga. And I would just suggest, find a practice, whether that's online or in a studio that feels good in your body. There's so many different styles of yoga, but we are designed to move. We're not designed to sit on our butts all day.
No.
So move it and breathe deep with the movement that you choose. Something you enjoy is so important.
Yeah, music,
Yeah.
all of that, right? It's just anything that makes your heart feel like makes you smile, right?
And then having a self-awareness practice, whether you call that meditation, whether you do something mindful, like mindful eating, like noticing your all five senses, not just we tend to be very visual, but noticing all the senses within the body. Like this starts to create a mindfulness or a meditation practice. Doesn't matter what you call it, but something that tunes you into the thoughts spinning through your mind.
Do you know what's always so great is whatever I'm doing, I end up doing a podcast that's talking exactly about what I'm working through.
Awesome.
Right? Of course, right?
Well, you probably attract it and then
Of
my
course,
last
because
part
I'm right in the middle of it, right?
would be
And
like
so I love it
creativity.
because it's some more knowledge, some confirmation of,
Yes.
that, this is somebody who's moved through it and right. And that's what we need to share so people can go, hey, no, you know what? I could do that.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you don't even know that somebody's all of a sudden went, oh, and all of a sudden their life shifts just from, saying, you know what, I can do that little bit of yoga and try some breath for whatever.
Yeah.
And
I
then,
always say start with like 5 minutes or less of yoga. And when people say, oh, I'm not flexible, I'm like, you're talking to a person who has a spinal fusion. You can't talk to me about not being flexible. I'm pretty inflexible in my whole spine. So I can't use that as an excuse.
yeah, it's pretty incredible. That's a pretty invasive surgery that you had.
I did. And I teach yoga and I teach meditation. And when people say, oh, I can't meditate, I don't sit still. And I'm like, I'm a very active person, especially creatively and mentally. if I could do a meditation practice, even for 2 minutes, like try on 2 minutes, and if that's no big deal, totally possible.
Well, and I think that that breath, if you're counting on breath, right? When you're counting, it's like in for 5, right, and then out for 8. Well, now you've just cleared those thoughts, right, into just counting, right? So now you've just learned that little space right there without even knowing that you've done that, right?
Breath meditations are so powerful. Just being aware of deeper breathing can be a game changer for many people.
Yeah, I can't stress enough what that like what we're talking about. It really, really is profound. It really is. And like, they're opening up and coming up and clearing, from the base chakra all the way up, but doing the Joe Dispenza advanced class. And,
Yeah.
people that are opening up, they're hitting the pineal, however you pronounce it. And the energy that's moving through, they're getting their spinal fluid is going up and through their body, not just once or maybe twice as we get older a day. This is now moving that spinal fluid through your body and up with your breath, and you're just right and taking all those lower nasty thoughts and release, just kind of having that. It's just so it's not hard, but you have to intend
Yeah.
to work, do the process, right?
Yeah. And that's why I think having a community with accountability and encouragement and support when times get tough is so important because it helps keep us on track.
Do you know what? I would have loved to have had that. I hadn't found my tribe. I hadn't found. I started this podcast on a dark night of the soul. Didn't even realize that I was signing up for a broadcasting show. It was like, okay, I didn't even have a selfie. It was ridiculous, but he just spoke to me that night, and it was kind of just one of those, and I went. It just and then okay, now take this now, post it all over social media. Well, I'm not even on social media really, right? So no, I'm not doing that. And just moving through that fear and those thoughts of, well, what will they think, and what will they, who cares, they're gonna think and say it anyways, right? So, and like, whatever, it's not your business what they're thinking. I love that saying too.
Yeah, so
Right.
true.
Wow. So how do people get a hold of you and hook up with you and get started with something, if they've not done anything like this before and they kind of just want to reach out and chat and kind of find out a little bit more about you? Is it best to go on your website? Like how?
Yeah, I would say probably best to go on my website. Like you, I'm not the most active on social media. I am a little, but I have a website called Sacred Path Yoga and Reiki.com. I've got a free video series on there that's a journey to abundant energy. So in there, I have the different practices like breath work, meditation, and I mean, one of the biggest comments I get from people is, "I am so tired. I don't have enough energy," for various reasons. So I put together this short video series. It's even got a yoga practice at the end that incorporates obviously yoga, meditation, and simple energy healing technique, breath work, to help give someone that sustainable energy, not the like hit a sugar in the afternoon or caffeine boost or whatever they might be relying on.
Oh, it's clean. It's good. It's real.
It's
Yeah,
a natural healing path for
it's better
tired.
than anything that you will ever have. That feeling, and that once you get a taste of that, even just for a moment in time, you go and chase it, because that's where our power is to
Yes.
create what it is. Like we don't even know that we're in charge of having a great day, half of us, right? We're just thinking we're all getting battered around by everybody and thinking, that's just the way it is. Well, apparently it's not. Apparently we can create a new story and start talking a new story, like you're saying, and then start, not looking at the old story that we've been struggling on. Mine's getting really big and nasty. I mean, I need to not look at that story anymore. It's proof to me that it just keeps rolling. That ball just gets bigger and bigger, and that this, yeah. And I'm not alone where I think we do that. We think that it's just us, and nobody wants to say, "Oh, that's I'm kind of struggling," or whatever, right? We're all the same. Maybe someone's doing great on this section, but they're not, right? They're struggling on another. It's it's not like you're less than or they're
No.
like, it's funny what and especially as we're getting older and visiting with friends that I grew up and went to school with last weekend at a wedding, the you can see the deep patterns of the thoughts and how it's damaging. And of course I'm seeing that, so that's mine, right? So then I'm like, okay, so that's what I'm clearing. That's why I'm doing this, is because I can see that because I have been doing that, right? And not putting it on somebody else as a judgment, which is that's what we tend to want to do as well as a society, right? They see that and they just think it's them. Can't be around that person anymore because the kids. Oh, Brenda, we need some education up there, and I'm so glad to have
Oh,
met you.
yeah. Thank you. Definitely come
Brilliant.
visit me on my website, Sacred Path Yoga and Reiki. I do have a about twice a month email, and I just share tips and insights and meditation. So if someone's interested in just taking a little dive in, they can sign up for my email. It's pretty low key, but it's all really powerful and effective. So
I think that's what people want, though, is the low key, right? Where they don't feel like they're
yeah,
gonna
I don't email people every day, and like I don't have time for that. Like
right. Yeah, yeah,
I've
yeah.
got kids to raise. I don't.
Right? Yes, and so we need to talk about that. We need to get some ideas going about how we can put forth to educate our children. We need to get this information in some kind of format so that we have this education for our children,
Right, because
for
it
those
starts
of
with
us.
us.
There's half of the world wants it. I know that. We're at the tipping point, are we not?
Yeah.
I
So
believe so. So start thinking about that, Brenda Mum,
I
and
will.
I am too. And let's, as a community, start because this Sandy Levy Lundy, this pioneer lady, um, that's what she's doing, and I said I'd like to do that with you, and so like we need to create a force and of moms and what needs to be taught. What do our children need to know? What do we want our children to know? What's important? What will make a difference? And what's going to, like, of course, you can they keep all these other things, but I believe, I'm not sure how it's going to look, but with vision and brilliant minds like yourself who have been there and created space and are sharing and lifting others.
Well, thank you. Thank you for
Think about
having
it.
me on your podcast. It's been so delightful.
Loved having a visit with you. Thank you,
Good.
Brenda. And I'll go look on there and I'm going to do that little free video series.
Yeah, good.
Thank you so much. And all of your information will be on this podcast with a write up so that they will also know how to get a hold of you in writing.
Thank you very much, Jackie.
All right. I hope to touch base soon. Bye now.